everyone. Welcome to the latest installment of MSP Business School. As always, I'm your host, Brian Doyle. And today I'm going to do one of my fireside chats and really kind of share with you my thoughts on being the modern day MSP. Now, this episode might be a little bit more short and sweet than some of our other ones, but I really do want to talk about some points today. Things I've been hearing kind of rumbling around in my conversations with customers and certainly, up on Reddit, LinkedIn, and other places as well. And really, I'm a big Rush fan. If you go back to it, we've become modern day warriors. And what I mean by modern day warriors, we're guys that don't carry a shield and a sword anymore, but we're out there interacting with data. And those that are on the wrong side of the law are coming in and trying to get that data. And those of us that are on the right side of the law are trying to protect it, right? So our job has really become maintaining data flows, managing that data, and making sure privacy is held. And in being that modern day MSP, that really opens up some different doors for us. First and foremost, if you're not involved with the customer's line of business applications, you need to get involved with that. We are past the point of turning the screwdriver. You guys have heard me talk about past history. I go back to the early days of IT services where we were making 25 to 40% on every hardware box we sold. We were making money without implementation dollars. Quite frankly, we were giving away implementation dollars if the hardware cost enough back in those days. We then moved into the initial managed service period where the project flows, which would often be very up and down and not predictable, both for the customer and for the MSP, into those predictable cost models and where we're providing more proactive services. I've said many times, most of the money I made in the 2000s came from managing Exchange servers. But when we got to the early part of the 2010s, what showed up at our doorstep but Office 365. And those of you that were there with me then, we were all worried at $1.50 a box or whatever it was at that in terms of margin, how we were going to make money with Office 365. I think the good news is we figured that one out. This led us into the, now bandwidth started becoming more of a commodity. We're able to get more and more bandwidth for much, much less money. And the cloud solutions became reality. So, we've talked many times about the fact that the MSP market is cyclical. We talk about what's old becomes new and things change. But now we're at a really interesting kind of inflection point, I think, in our history. Almost everything we talked about before was very technical driven. Migrations had to happen, support had to happen. The technology was much more challenging. The marketplace was still led with a lot of boomers and Gen Xers, and I'm pointing at myself there that we're not, digital natives. Now our customers are digital natives that understand all the basic principles and they want to see outcomes. And as a result, if you want to be a modern day MSP, you got to make a shift. One of my favorite Rush songs is Tom Sawyer, of course. And, we've all become modern day warriors at this stage. Being a modern day warrior doesn't mean that we carry a shield and a sword anymore. It really means that we're protecting data. We're more involved with that kind of analytic view of things. The people that are on the bad side of the law, they're trying to get in and proliferate that data and make money off of you that way. Those of us that are trying to protect that data, we're trying to keep those people out and make sure that, integrity and privacy stays in play. But the reality is we are all warriors right now. The threats against us have never been as large. The tools that are out there to help automate those threats have never been more plentiful. And AI is just rippling to bring another, challenge point to that whole process. So, if you really want to think about what's next, what's your next step, you really need to start thinking about, how am I going to engage with my customers as I move into the future, right? And the first thing I'm going to give you basically 4 approach models that you have to jump into. The first is get involved with their line of business. More and more MSPs I'm seeing are starting to get vertical. We've talked about that for many years in the past, but the truth is nobody was really doing it. And now we're seeing more and more MSPs saying, I've got to get engaged. I'm really good at X. And as being good at X, I need to get engaged with those applications and understand them better. But this doesn't necessarily mean you now need to become an application specialist. You can become a a automation specialist in that area. You can help knit and bring different applications together. So really when we talk about getting involved with line of business, let's just take the medical community as an example. Let's say you do a lot of work with healthcare. You've got an opportunity to maybe become an Allscripts provider or one of those applications and do EHR records, right? And that's the easy way. Well, I shouldn't say easy, but that's an easy process to get in there and own both the infrastructure, security, and application. But what if they already have somebody engaged on the application? Well, now you have a huge opportunity to go, great. What can I learn about that application and how can I extend it out and make it better for the doctors or the physicians that I'm serving? And what I really mean by that is look at all the automation opportunity that's there. If those applications have huge integrations, learn what those integrations are and build services around that application that you can help to automate different things. When you think about a doctor, activities that they do quite normally, sending out appointment confirmations, taking notes. There are some awesome tools coming into play for AI dictation and translation. Translation services is another big one, right? And if you can understand the ecosystem that might be supporting that application, now you can bring that ecosystem into your MSP and build a practice that can help in supporting that. So if you haven't thought much about line of business, I really say as we move into the next generation of being service providers, that's an area that you really need to jump in and get involved in. Some other areas that you may want to get involved in include getting into AI. So this is really number two. Now we all know we want to get into AI, right? And that's not necessarily the boldest statement any human beings ever put on the planet, right? But now it's about AI forward, not AI first. I think when AI first came to be, people were trying to understand the generative process, how they could even harness the horsepower of AI, and they used it very basically to kind of help that process move along. What we've come to see since that point in time is that there's a huge opportunity to really engage AI in a different way. And the way we can do that is to bring different tools to help the process. So I'm going to share with you a couple tools that I'm utilizing these days that I find is helping me be more AI forward. It's not just about having an AI tool, but it's how you can implement it into a process. For application providers like me, one of the things that we're trying to do is really understand how can we harness AI to drive more automation, more information, less manual labor in there. Stay tuned. VCIO Toolbox has got a huge automation project coming up that's really going to take down a lot of the prep time that's commonly been involved in QBRs and soon in the GRC process as well. But this isn't meant to be an infomercial. Really, what I want to share with you is some tools that I've taken looking at my business day and saying, hey, how can I integrate these things in? First, I type a ton. When I get my Grammarly report back each week, I'm writing over 50,000 words or, just about a novel every week. These are email replies to my customers, outreach conversations, all that kind of stuff. And it takes a lot of time. And quite frankly, my hands are starting to hurt. So I was introduced, and I got to give a shout out to Paul Green. Many of you know him from the MSP Marketing Podcast. In my mailbox was an email from him telling me about Whisper Flow and how this was a new application that he was using to help him not type. And my God, I've been using it for about 2 weeks, and I'm never going to go back now. It allows you to talk conversationally into your microphone, and I'm doing 122 words a minute. So you can imagine when you're doing 50,000 words a week, how much time I'm saving. I haven't done the calculation yet, but let's assume I was 25 words a minute, from a typing perspective. It's a 5-to-1 gain, right? So it's a huge opportunity there. Some other tools that I like to use include Jasper AI. This is AI really built for your marketing teams. Now, I've been using Jasper for probably 3 years. I got involved when it was a pretty new product, and it has come a long way. You can, and the way I use it is I don't use AI necessarily to build from scratch. I do write a lot of the content that I want to put out there, whether it's email blasts, whether it's a blog post, whether it's scripting for some of the videos that we do. I want to make sure it gets out there the right way with my tone. And what I do is then bring it into a tool like Jasper, and I'm able to do a content rewrite. So I write a big prompt, or I'll write the initial article. I'll put it into the content manager. I'll enhance the prompt, and boom, it comes out a lot more flowy. Then I go and do a final edit to make sure it's really conveying the message I want and still sounds like my tone. But once you get that initial piece of content in there, now you can just move through the cycle. You can create campaigns that work around that. You can create your social blasts. You can potentially build an article. Um, One of the tools I'll be talking about today that I use specifically for MSP Business School is Decipher AI. And when I upload these videos in there, it creates a blog article, it creates all my social posts, it creates the video snippets that you guys see in your MSP chains. And all of this comes through these marketing-based AI tools that are out there to really help you take that core pillar piece of content and then be able to build the repurposing engine. So one piece of content can be shared 8 to 10 different ways. And we all know part of the game with social media is really just getting out there and being seen. So now imagine if you take tools like Whisper and Jasper and Decipher and bring those to your clients who might also be looking to amplify their messages. Even if these are not things that you get paid directly on, think about the power and the value you're driving back to the customer relationship when you do that, right? And, that's really the name of the game in our world, right? How do we bring these things back to the customer relationship? Another tool that we're using quite a bit at VCIO Toolbox, these are my coding guys doing this as well, is the AI code editor. Now, I know there's a lot around vibe coding and different things and building out apps, but at the end of the day, you're still building applications at scale. We've got a lot of code and a lot of scalability we've built into VCIO Toolbox, but we're using like an AI code editor to build some of the features faster, get that raw code that we can then implement and tweak into the enterprise application. Now, while I'm not a coder myself, this is something that I've been hearing is really helping out my teams extensively. So if you're running an MSP that does do some coding or you're doing DevOps work, this may help you integrate these code editors much faster. And again, this is all stuff we can be doing to really help our customer relationships. The next one, of course, is one I preach about all the time. Security never goes out of style, right? And the one thing that you have to remember is your customer, as much as you do, don't care about your stack. They don't care about all these great tools that are going in there. They just want to know that they have the tools to protect them. So if you're walking into meetings talking about all the great things your stack can do for you, you're missing the opportunity. You got to be talking more in the outcomes that the stack provides. Hey, we're going to provide endpoint security. And should something come in and we detect an intrusion on the host, boom, it's going to go out to the managed SOC that's going to come in and start remediating it. We're going to bring security and awareness training to your end users, and we're going to do phishing simulations. And now we're going to find out who the risky users are. And if we identify those risky users, we can educate them with the hopes of building a more cyber-friendly, cyber-aware culture in our business. And if people repeatedly go down the road where they don't improve themselves, we've got the history to do that. So now we're taking the things that live in our stack and we're using them to come up with an outcome story. And really, at the end of the day, that's what our customers care about, right? They care about the outcomes. They don't care about how we got there. Some other tools that we can utilize, the other thing about security is really, that outcome-based approach. Finally, my fourth topic for today is really get more strategic with your customer. You've seen a lot of posts going around about strategy. I've been a little snarky on my end, and I've definitely, if you go back a few episodes, ran it a little bit, that people are talking about strategy like it's this new thing. And it's really the core tenet and pillar that we built VCIO Toolbox on. But really, I'm excited by this because it tells me the market is finally maturing enough to have these conversations. You got to understand the customer's big picture. If you don't know what they're trying to do within their business, if you don't understand what the big, hairy, audacious goals are that they're trying to reach, whether they're involved with technology or not, and what those obstacles are that are going to prevent them from getting there, you are missing opportunity left and right. And even if it's not expanding opportunity, it's taking those projects you're trying to drill home, and you're going to continue to get the sales friction you often get because the customer's not sure about return on investment because you're not able to point back to the goals that they're going to help in supporting. That outcome based approach, that ability to show them, hey, this project is going to meet these goals and this is the impact you can expect for your business. Man, that's what they want to hear. The people across the table from you are business people. They are not IT people. And if you're not having those discussions, you're definitely and desperately missing the boat. So, I really want to make sure you start thinking that way, because if you don't get strategic in today's market, if you don't start integrating into your conversations things like how to develop an AI policy for the organization, and not allow people just to bring in a bunch of wayward tools for AI and not understanding how the data they input into those tools are going to be used by those tools, right? We become even a bigger security hole now that AI is out there. So we have to make sure that we're building the right policies, that we're trying to understand how the customer is growing, that we're looking at ways to build automation. I talked about the line of business apps and kind of building the ecosystem around that to make you the next generation of MSP. You got to be able to show the financial side of it. Maybe not everything's going to come with an ROI, but what is the financial risk of not doing this? If we're able to show something that's on the risk register and we can show the impact and likelihood being pretty high and we know what systems it's touching, if we have any idea of the customer's revenues, we can start figuring out cost of downtime. And all these things are really going to help you reduce the time to getting things done with your customers. So, if you want to be the modern day MSP, get out of the break fix mentality, get out of the mentality of I got to understand, refine, and get my stack to this perfect area. It's get out there and execute. Go have conversations with your customers, understand what makes them tick, understand how you can help, get familiar with their line of business applications, get familiar with the AI tools that you're using, and think about how you can help them. Learn the AI tools that their industry is using and understand what they're all about. Have a secure mindset. At all times when you're implementing these things, think about the new holes you might be opening up and how to govern those. And ultimately, if you do all that, you're going to become a strategic, trusted partner that your customer can't live without. So I want to thank you all for joining me this week. As you know, this MSP Business School is available up on YouTube at YouTube/at MSP Business School. You can also get us anywhere that you download your podcasts. And I will see you all again next week with my guest, Jake Carroll from Enforcer. So I'm really excited to have Jake join me again. You might remember him from some previous lifespans that he's been a part of. But Jake and I are going to really have a great conversation about what you might be able to do with AI in the Microsoft Copilot world. With that, have a great weekend, and we'll see you all again next week.